And then in June of 1950, the Communists of North Korea invaded South Korea. Now, we brought this conflict right to the United Nations, and we did receive their mandate to expel the North Koreans from the South. But the majority of forces used were strictly South Korean and American. That decision to have to send our soldiers out to fight in Korea, that was the hardest decision of my presidency. And then, when their commander, General Douglas MacArthur, against my express command not to do so, he kept publicly insisting that we had to expand the war into China. And I will admit to you, the Chinese were helping the North Koreans, but I told him not to talk about these things in public, and when he could not obey a direct command from his commander-in-chief, well, I had to fire that well-known war hero.
Poor Harry was hung in effigy around the nation. There were even calls for his impeachment. My own mother asked me, "Why did your husband have to fire that nice man?" And I shot back, "My husband, mother, happens to be commander-in-chief. That outranks a general. My husband does what he thinks best for this country." There were even some who believed that I had advised Harry to dismiss MacArthur. Well, I'll never tell. It was a stormy 4 years, but not without its nice moments. Margaret was now out on her own, living in New York, so the 3 musketeers, as we had been called, were reduced to the 2 lovebirds. You know, I oftentimes would go back to independence for extended periods of time. I had been doing this ever since our Senate days, much to Harry's chagrin.
Yep.
I really did not like Washington society and standing in those receiving lines. Of course, Harry and I always looked forward to our reunions when I come back to Washington like 2 lovebirds.
Yeah. Now, during my second term, they passed the 22nd Amendment to our Constitution. That would limit all future presidents to 2 terms in office. I think it's the worst amendment we ever added to our Constitution. I was not affected by it. I could have run for another term. However, I decided early on this was my last. I made the announcement official in March of 1952. And how did you feel about that announcement, boss?
Port Huron.
I bet. Some presidents were great and some of them weren't. I can make you a statement like that because I was not one of the great presidents. But I had a good time trying to be one.
Harry, you did much that set the tone for the next quarter of a century. Besides the Truman Doctrine, you had the creation of NATO for mutual protection. You spearheaded civil rights legislation and appointments to the Supreme Court of men with similar beliefs. And your call for health care for the elderly and the less fortunate finally led to Medicare under President Johnson.
Yeah.
You did a good job, Harry. I hope I did my part.
You know you did.
I did support Harry. You know, I remember a letter he wrote me when I sent him to the little White House in Key West, Florida, his favorite little hideaway where I'd sent him to rest when he was having severe headaches during the second term. Do you remember what you wrote?
Oh, I sure do. The general trend of the press is that I'm a very small man in a very large job. I'm much older and I'm very tired, and I need support as no man ever did. I'm telling you this right now so you might understand how badly I still need your help and support right now.
I did support Harry, and in my own quiet way I shared his burdens with him.